Picture this: a quiet rural town where the sun rises over endless fields of golden crops tended by a hard-working black farmer named James. He's a man of integrity, loved by his neighbors, and known for his unshakable kindness. But beneath the town's peaceful surface lurks an ugly truth. Some of the local cops have a history of crossing the line, especially when it comes to men like James. One day, an ordinary traffic stop on the edge of his property spirals into something far more sinister. What the officers don't know is that James isn't alone in this fight. His son Marcus is an FBI agent with a sharp mind, unrelenting determination, and a personal connection to justice. When Marcus gets wind of what's happening, the tables begin to turn in ways no one could have expected. Just how far will these officers go, and how will Marcus make them regret it? James had always taught Marcus to stand tall in the face of injustice. Growing up on the farm, Marcus saw his father work tirelessly to provide for their family, often enduring veiled looks and whispers from those who couldn't see past the color of his skin. But James never let bitterness take root. "We fight hate with dignity," he would say. That dignity was tested the day two officers showed up, claiming James's tractor was parked illegally on a public road. The exchange started with sharp words, but quickly escalated. By the time it was over, James was left humiliated, bruised, and threatened with arrest. When Marcus called to check in, his father's voice carried a weight he hadn't heard before. Marcus didn't need details. He knew this was about more than a tractor. Quietly, he started piecing things together, using his FBI resources. What he uncovered left him seething, but it was only the beginning. As Marcus dug deeper, the pieces started to form an unsettling picture. The officers involved weren't just bad apples. They had a pattern of targeting minority farmers in the area, using intimidation and bogus charges to push them off their land. James's property, with its fertile soil and prime location, was no exception. Marcus felt a wave of anger rising, but he knew he had to be smart. Charging in without proof would only make things worse. Meanwhile, James tried to carry on as if nothing had happened, but the strain was evident. Neighbors whispered about the confrontation, some showing quiet support, others keeping their distance out of fear. One night, James found his barn door pried open, his equipment tampered with, a clear warning. Back in the city, Marcus carefully built his case, pulling records and connecting dots. Each discovery added fuel to the fire, but one crucial question loomed: how far would these officers go to protect their scheme? One stormy evening, James was out checking his fields when headlights appeared at the edge of his property. It was the same officers, their presence unmistakable. This time, they weren't bothering with excuses. They claimed his boundary fence was encroaching on public land and demanded he take it down immediately. James stood his ground, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. But the officers weren't looking for a conversation. They were looking to provoke. As tensions escalated, Marcus was already on his way back to the farm. He had uncovered more than enough evidence to expose the corruption, but something told him time was running out. His father wasn't the kind of man to back down, even if it meant putting himself in danger. When Marcus pulled into the driveway, the sight stopped him cold. Flashing lights reflected off the rain-soaked fields, and the heated voices carried on the wind. He gripped his phone, knowing one wrong move could ignite the situation, but he also knew he couldn't stay silent. Marcus stepped out of his car, rain drenching him instantly as he approached the scene. The officers turned, their hands hovering near their holsters. James stood firm, his face calm but defiant, even as the tension crackled in the air like the storm overhead. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his badge flashing in the beam of a flashlight. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't expected anyone, let alone someone with federal authority, to intervene. One of them smirked, trying to regain control. "This is local business. You're out of your jurisdiction." Marcus's voice didn't waver. "When local business involves violating federal laws, it becomes my jurisdiction." He began listing off the charges he'd uncovered: fraud, intimidation, and conspiracy. The officers' bravado faltered, but one of them made a move that took Marcus by surprise. The officer pulled out his radio, but instead of calling for backup, he called someone higher up. It became clear this wasn't just about a few rogue cops. There was a larger network pulling the strings. Marcus realized they were far deeper in danger than he had imagined, and now the fight wasn't just about justice for James, it was about survival. As the officer lowered his radio, a black SUV pulled up, its tinted windows adding to the unease. A man in a sharp suit stepped out, clearly someone in authority, but his expression was unreadable. Marcus stood his ground, even as the man approached with a calm, calculated demeanor. "I hear there's a problem," the man said, glancing between Marcus and the officers. "Agent Marcus, is it? You've been digging into things that don't concern you." His tone was smooth, but the threat was clear. Marcus didn't flinch. Intimidation won't work. "I've already sent everything to the bureau. It's over." The man's smile faltered for a split second before he signaled to the officers. "Stand down," he ordered, his voice cold. The officers hesitated, then retreated to their car, glaring at Marcus and James. Relief started to wash over them, but as the SUV drove off, Marcus's phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Asterisk, "You've exposed the pawns, but the game is far from over." Asterisk. Marcus stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. They had won this battle, but the war had only just begun. As the storm eased, James and Marcus stood together under the fading rain, the tension finally breaking. The flashing lights disappeared down the road, leaving behind only the quiet of the farmland. James placed a hand on his son's shoulder, his pride evident despite the wariness in his eyes. "They'll come back," James said, his voice low but steady. "People like that don't give up so easily." Marcus nodded, but his determination was unwavering. "Then neither will we. The truth is out now, and they can't hide forever." Over the following weeks, Marcus's evidence began to unravel the network of corruption. Federal investigations reached deeper into the system, bringing light to years of exploitation. The community, inspired by James's resilience, started to rally together, refusing to be silenced anymore. As the sun set over the fields one evening, Marcus looked out at the land his father had fought to protect. Justice wasn't just a win, it was a promise to keep fighting, no matter what.